Hi, good evening. Everybody take a seat, please. Everybody, just another minute, last few sign-ins. While people are signing in, I was reminded, I want to remind everyone here that on, just before we call the meeting to order, that on Monday night, the city is undertaking a 20-year comprehensive land use plan. And Monday night at 6 o'clock is one of the citizen input meetings for the 20-year land use plan. So I know you're all here for a specific application, either in favor, either supporting or opposing. But on Monday, we're all going to come together on both sides to give our input for the input to develop this 20-year plan. So I believe it's here. Is that correct? It's here at 6 o'clock. People are going to have little sticky things to put up on boards and vote and kind of help us develop the the vision for the next 20 years. And it's not just starting 20 years out. It's what will develop over the years. So, all right, with that, good evening and welcome to the June 4th meeting of the City of Brookhaven Planning Commission. I'm Stan Siegel, and I've got a note. Okay, so, well, I guess, again, before we get started, so on June 30th? June 30th. Yeah, June 30th, 6 to 8:30 at Oglethorpe. We're going to present the zoning map, the future zoning map. The zoning map for, that we'll be looking at. On July 23rd, if you're taking notes, the Planning Commission will have a hearing here at City Hall at 7 o'clock to hear more public comment. And on August the 12th, the City Council will hold a public hearing on the zoning map. Did I get that right?
Yes, sir, and that's for the purpose of the readoption of the zoning map as a result of the zoning map audit that's been going on.
Everybody hear that? For the purpose of readopting the zoning map as a result of the zoning map audit. All right, people are still signing in, so sign in as quick as you can. We'll start again. Good evening and welcome. This is the June 4th meeting of the City of Brookhaven Planning Commission. Again, I am Stan Siegel, and I will be presiding this evening over the meeting. This public meeting has been called on matters pursuant to the Brookhaven zoning ordinance and specified on tonight's agenda, which should be in the back of the room. There's plenty of seats, people, so I'd really, and there's only so many, so much documentation back there, so please share. As a way of introduction, I'm going to call the roll and have each commissioner acknowledge their presence. Again, I'm Stan Siegel. Commissioner Shannon Cameron.
Present.
Commissioner Rob Francoeur.
Present.
Commissioner John Funny.
Present.
Commissioner Jeff O'Connell.
Present.
Commissioner Bert Levy.
Present.
And Commissioner Caitlin Miller.
Present.
And we are in our new digs tonight. This is our first public meeting in this, so we have all this fancy stuff here. Let the record indicate that we have 7 members are present this evening, and we have a quorum, and we'll proceed. I'd also like to ask everybody, it's a good time for everybody, including me, make sure everybody's got your cell phones either on silent or off, please. I'd like to introduce the folks here from the city staff. Ms. Susan Cannon, who's Director of Community Development and the Assistant City Manager. There she is, yeah. Ben Song, who's the City Planner. Ms. Becky Apter. And I thought Miss Aranda Smith, who's Assistant City Planner.
She's a city planner.
City Planner. Got it, okay. Again, as I said, there should be a number of copies of the agenda-related items at the back of the room. If you'll be making a comment this evening, you have to fill out a public comment card and turn it in. So we really ask you to do that ahead of time, and then we'll just call you up in order. And when you come up to the mic, speak as clearly as you can into the microphone. Let us know who you are, where you live, and who you represent, and whether you're supporting or in opposition. This Planning Commission.
She's the applicant.
This planning commission is established by the Code of Ordinances of the City of Brookhaven. Our purpose is to conduct public hearings on land use, zoning changes, co-text amendments, and other related matters. The Planning Commission's actions are not a final determination regarding the matters before us this evening, but only a recommendation to the mayor and the city council, the viewpoint of this commission. I'd also like to say that in making our recommendations this evening, we're doing the utmost we can to balance the land use with the interests of the applicant, the neighboring community, and the entire city of Brookhaven. Something to remember is that the commissioners are all intimately familiar with this city. And although not everyone will agree with the recommendations we make this evening, we won't even all agree with each other sometimes. Know that each of us are voting to make Brookhaven a better place to live and work. I mean, we all live here. We are all your neighbors. One last piece of kind of thing is I want to tell you about the new business and how we're going to conduct our the meeting this evening. The city staff will present a summary of the item and report any recommendations or findings on the application before us. The applicant or their representative will then have a total of 10 minutes. They can use it all up front. They can talk for a little bit and reserve a portion of the time for rebuttal after the public comment. We'll then have a public comment section. 10 minutes for those in support of the agenda item, 10 minutes for those opposed. Each speaker will need to submit a comment card, as I mentioned, state their name and current address, and be aware that others will need time to present. So please be brief and succinct. State your position on the application before us and help us understand why you've taken that position. Remember, we're trying to understand the position that's being taken. We don't want to rush anybody. We want everyone to be heard. It's going to be tough, but please limit your time. Please limit your remarks. And if somebody has said what you feel, come up, tell us who you are, what you think, and just say, I agree with the person before. But it's your time, and we'll respect that. So we'd ask you to respect everyone else, too. The other thing I'd like to say, because we have a crowd this evening in particular, is zoning applications and anything that affects zoning can be very emotional. And it's emotional for both the community and it's emotional for the applicant. So I'm going to ask that if you speak, that everyone address their issues to the topic of land use. I don't want any personal agendas or anything out back and forth. I will stop that. We need you to address the land use issues before us. So please help us out with that. After that, the applicant will have the remainder of their 10 minutes if there's any. We'll close the public portion of the hearing, and then the commissioners will have, as the commission will have an opportunity to ask questions of the staff, the applicant, or anybody who has spoken. So, we'll deliberate in public. The commissioners will then have an opportunity to, that, and then we'll vote on the matter before us. We can vote to recommend approval, we can recommend denial, or we can recommend the application be deferred for one 30-day period, I guess now. We have the ordinance. So that's where we are.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
you didn't approve the previous minutes.
we will admit, we'll start now.
Oh, could you skip?
I am starting the roll. Yeah, I got it. Got it. All right. So now that we've called the roll, I've said my piece. First item on the agenda. is
The organizational one.
I know, I just get it in there. So first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes, approval of the May 5th Planning Commission work session meeting minutes. Do I have a motion on, from the commission? By the way, if we're having a little bit, we're working with these laptops up here, and we're figuring out what's next.
I make a motion that we approve the May 5th, 2014 Planning Commission work session meeting minutes.
Okay, do I have a second on that?
I'll second the motion.
All right, all in favor of approving the May 5th Planning Commission work session meeting minutes, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Next item is approval of the May 7th Planning Commission regular meeting minutes. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the May 2nd regular meeting minutes.
And I second that.
All right, we have a motion and we have a second on the May 7th meeting. Any discussion? I guess we don't need discussion. Okay, All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Next is organizational procedural items. Do we have any, Director Cannon?
None from staff, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody on the, or anything? I don't think there were.
I'm not sure that you directly read the preamble.
I didn't correctly read it?
I didn't hear that you directly read the preamble into the record. I'm not sure if you want to clarify that. With 10 minutes per side and that we typically limit speakers to 3 minutes each.
I did.
Okay. I apologize, I didn't hear that part. So thank you very much.
No. Yes, I did. Yeah, we've got that. The question was, was it everybody clear that we've got 10 minutes aside and 3 minutes per speaker? And the answer is yes, we read that into it.
Thank you.
All right. So unfinished business is our next item, ordinance 2014-0201, RZ 13-15.
Mr. Chairman, before Mr. Song gives you an update on that, I'd like to remind the Planning Commission that you did in fact hold a public hearing. You did close the public hearing. The case did travel to the City Council, in which they deferred this case. It has been deferred back to the Planning Commission. Procedurally, the process has been met in that the public hearing has been held, but I do believe it was the council's intent for the Planning Commission to take additional public comment. So I just wanted to make that clear for the record.
Okay. Everybody get that? We've been through this once, and because of the importance, the City Council's asked us to do it again. And it is an important issue, so. Ben?
Get the mic on. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The case before you is RZ 1315. As alluded to, the case was heard by City Council on February 25th. It was remanded back to the Planning Commission, considering for cooperation between the applicant and the homeowners to possibly come up with a revised site plan. As of now, we have not received a new site plan from the applicant, but we did receive confirmation that they would move forward with the application as submitted. Quickly going over the application, the original application was submitted to rezone the subject property from R100 to C1 for construction of an accessory parking lot. Staff did make a recommendation to deny the proposed request for C1, however, with an alternate recommendation to approve as NS, Neighborhood Shopping Zoning District, for construction of an accessory parking lot as part of the parking requirements for the adjoining existing business and potential or possible expansion of Nuts and Berries. Staff would stipulate to the report and also state that the commissioners received an email from staff in which we provided a comparison of the initial conditions with the revised conditions based upon what was discussed by the applicant. I'm sure the applicant will go over that again, and I just wanted to put that on the record as well. So thank you.
And the revised conditions were those that were actually stated on the record in the Planning Commission hearing.
Okay. So we need to officially open the public hearing and ask the applicant or their representative to speak. So the official is, public hearing is open. I always forget that part.
We're publicing. Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening. I'm Linda Dunleavy on behalf of the applicant. One of my favorite movies, they say, build it and they will come, but if you can't park it, they're going to pass right on by. And that's what this application is all about tonight. We are here because a long-term business in the city of Brookhaven, namely Nuts and Berries, finds itself in the unenviable position of having built it but not being able to park it. It is an economically viable business right now, but because of competitive forces in the market and the change in Brookhaven, Mr. Kick, who is the owner of Nuts and Berries and seated over here, needs to expand his business. The parking on the site right now is non-conforming in terms of its location and in terms of its size and the dimensions that are currently required. What also is non-conforming is there are no sidewalks along the front that meet the requirements of the Brookhaven Peachtree Overlay District, and this property adjoins, Nuts and Berries is in the overlay, the rezoned property is not in the overlay. But Nuts and Berries does not conform to the Brookhaven Peachtree overlay design guidelines with respect to the landscape strip and the sidewalk. As soon as we add 1 square inch to this property, we have to conform. And as soon as we do that, we lose approximately 15 parking spaces out of the 22 that are there. And so if Mr. Kick is going to be able to expand this business, he's got to find parking. And that's what this whole application is about. The parking that we are attempting to secure rezoning for is right at the rear of the property. Mr. Kick has owned these 3 R100 lots for quite some time now. They have been used in the past for rental residences, but he proposes to use these 3 lots that he owns for parking to allow him to not have people pass by to actually come and park and enjoy an expanded business. He wants to put an addition on the front of the store of approximately 2,000 square feet. He may also want, at some point in time, to keep up with the marketplace, expand the retail and the office space. But he can't do any of this. He can't change his position in any way, shape, or form without parking. There's no other place for him to park. If he doesn't find parking on site, what are his options? His options are to rezone this property or to tell his customers that they have to park on the residential streets. Those are the only options that he has. The last time we were in front of you, there was a considerable groundswell of opposition to the parking plan as it has been proposed. Gosh, do you realize this thing is vibrating?
Was it, does it? No, it was all new, it was all new
At
to
first I
us.
thought it was me, but no, there's something coming up from the ground. And there was considerable opposition to the parking plan. This body was unimpressed by the fact that there had not been meetings with the neighborhood. We went to City Council. City Council urged us to please meet with the neighborhood, who I assume are all of these lovely people in green shirts tonight. After the City Council meeting, we did arrange for a meeting on site. They have retained legal counsel, Rob Stein, and we met out on the site. We walked the site. We spent 2 hours on the site attempting to understand what the concerns of the neighborhood were and whether or not we could somehow modify our plan to meet those concerns. We did come back with a plan that we presented to the neighborhood, and I have copies of that plan for you tonight, but we are not proposing that we go ahead and zone the property pursuant to this plan for a couple of reasons. The first is that, unfortunately, it doesn't meet any of the zoning code requirements. Your zoning code is not dexterous enough, facile enough to allow what we propose on this plan, which is to put 4 multi-story townhomes with a frontage on Kendrick and orient the parking further towards the back than what the original plan provided. The second reason we're not moving forward with this plan is that the neighborhood people or the Kona people do not like this plan. We did provide this plan to Rob Stein via email on April 24th in hopes that Kona would at least comment on the plan. We did not hear anything back from them for 18 days. And we heard back from them at 6 p.m. on the last day that we had been given as a deadline to provide any sort of revised site plan to the city staff. What we did hear back from Mr. Stein, and I quote, was, "The Board of Directors of the Kendrick Osborne Neighborhood Association and I have reviewed the proposed site plan and discussed it at length. When the board and I met with you and Mr. Kick, we sought to find a solution that was good for all concerned. However, in light of the information that Mr. Kick has supplied to date and the most recent site plan, the Kona Board is having a very hard time understanding the rationale for even considering a rezoning. We remain open to a solution that addresses the needs of all stakeholders." Period. End of story. There was no feedback in terms of, we don't like the townhomes, they're too close, could you consider additional green space, could you reduce your parking, nothing specific with respect to the site plan. The only feedback was that they were having trouble understanding the rationale for even considering a rezoning. We did find when we met with some representatives of Kona that they actually asked to see the financial records for my client's business. They wanted to analyze those financial records to determine, were we making a profit, how were we making a profit, and I point blank said to Mr. Stein, I'm sorry, but I think that's outside the bounds of a rezoning. My client believes, as a businessman who's been in this business for quite some time, that he needs to expand to remain competitive and economically viable. He needs parking for his business to be viable. Plunging into his books is not something that is generally part of a rezoning. In spite of this rebuff by Kona, we have tried to figure out ways that we could make this work and provide what we understand Kona wants, which is more of a residential presence along Kendrick. I did provide a copy of a very conceptual plan to Mr. Stein this evening. We're still trying to think through these things, but we're not getting any feedback that is workable for us to respond to. So what we are asking is that you approve the staff recommendation for neighborhood shopping with the conditions that have been recommended by staff with the plan that was filed the last time. We have to have parking for this business. If we don't have parking for this business will die. Thank you.
All right. And how much time? So I assume you're reserving your time for?
Well, actually, there are a couple of speakers
Okay.
who would like to speak. If the chair is willing to give me an extra couple minutes, I'll reserve that for rebuttal, but I do.
We'd
want
like to hear who else has to speak. All right. Okay. So do we have anyone who would like to speak in support of?
Don Newstat?
Yeah, let me ask you how many, see if I can, how many do you have, do you think?
There are 2 in support, and 1 second.
Hi.
We're counting.
Honey?
Counting.
Take up sticks, we're going to see, just hold one moment. We're not, no, it's not going down, don't worry.
11 in opposition, and they didn't ask. Okay, that's it. Thank you. I already told him that.
Okay. All right, so,
All right.
sorry.
I'm Don Newstad. I live at 2751 Osborne Road. I've been a builder and developer in Brookhaven since 1985. I've lived here since 1986. I think that what they put together with the residential buffer and adequate parking is okay for me. Unfortunately, my neighbors don't see the same. I'm pro-zoning, and that area is a dead space that should have been filled in a long time ago, and maybe before all these people bought their houses across the street. But that's all I have to say. There's also a petition of other businesses and people who are in favor of just this plan, if y'all like to see that.
Tell me again your address, I apologize.
2751 Osborne.
Dr. Ron Tucker?
Chairman Siegel, and I understand volunteer planning commissioners, members. I've been in business here in Brookhaven
Where do you live?
Station.
I'm sorry.
Dr. Ron Tucker. I've been a member, a business owner in Brookhaven for 23 years at Brookhaven Station, so we know about parking problems there. It's always been a popular shopping center. And I've seen owners come and go, and we have always had a parking problem when we're busy. When Nuts and Berries is busy, my staff of 4 and we go there, we need to get in and out quickly. If the parking lot's full, I didn't know how many spaces there were. I thought there was 30. I think I heard 19 tonight. And there's already a parking place there. And, you know, in my limited, you know, expertise, I just keep thinking, you know, we just need to get in and out, not park on the street. We need to get our food or get our products from this premier store in a very tight marketplace. They've managed to survive the economy, the internet, the grocery stores, and we're very supportive of Nuts and Berries. I've been going there for 23 years, and my petition to, you know, anyone that will listen is that, you know, when the parking lot is full, where can we park? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to, if you haven't turned in your card, here's your chance to do it if you'd like to speak in favor or support of this application. Okay?
Speaker cards in support, Mr. Chairman. Those that spoke in favor do not take away from the applicant's
All
10-minute
right,
timeframe.
that's what I was saying.
So the applicant still has
Yes,
2:59.
2 hours, 2 minutes and 58 for yourself.
And those that are here to speak in opposition, there have been 2 additional added, so there are now 13 that have submitted.
Yeah, maybe before we, in the past, what we've done is we've listened, let everybody run out of time, and then because we want to hear everybody. I mean, we want to give everybody enough time, and 10 minutes is just, it's tight. So instead of waiting till the end and then figuring out what we do, I'd certainly entertain a motion right now to extend for both sides and the applicant, so everybody gets an equal time here. If anybody on the commission would like to offer an extension of time, beyond the 10 minutes. If not, we'll wait till hear everybody. Okay. Nope. So we'll.
Okay, the first speaker in opposition is Rob Stein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Robert Stein, attorney with Lizagan Johansson, here representing the Kendrick Osborne Neighborhood Association. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, this is a strange rezoning. The discussion is all about the need for parking for a parcel that is not even a part of the application. The applicant is the owner of the commercially zoned property next door. The applicant has decided that he wants to increase the size of the building that is on that parcel by almost 40%. He currently has parking that he needs, the correct amount of parking on that parcel according to our codes, but he wants to add more tenants to his building, to lease out more space inside his building, to increase his revenue. And by building this addition, he's going to trip the codes that require that he lose parking, and with this addition, he will lose half of the parking on his lot. Next door is the Kendrick Osborne subdivision. The subdivision is thriving. New homes have replaced 1940s homes. Professionals, young families, lots of children, all good things for Brookhaven are going on in Kendrick Osborne. New homes for in excess of $500,000 are being put up all along Kendrick, adjacent to the Brookhaven Town Center. Homes that have 6-story apartments in their backyards. Along Tallulah, it's the same story. One after another, new homes that back up to a Shell station, warehouses, hardware supply businesses, and more. Commissioners, I don't need to tell you that this is a very desirable area. Why? It's close to Buckhead, shopping, and parks, and there's another factor. It's the city of Brookhaven. It's the knowledge that there are now public officials who live here and understand what's in the best interests of Brookhaven. The property that's up for rezoning is and has always been a part of the Kendrick Osborne subdivision. It's zoned single-family residential, and all the city plans and codes all have as objectives and policies to protect this neighborhood from the entry of commercial development. Let's take a brief moment to look at them. The Brookhaven Peachtree LCI clearly designates Kendrick Osborne and neighborhoods beyond as neighborhood conservation areas, areas for homes. The LCI map includes a thick red line, a wall effectively, that stops commercial development all along Peachtree, including at the property line of Nuts and Berries. Second, a great deal of study and effort was put into creating the Brookhaven Peachtree Overlay District, an area intended for commercial and mixed-use intensive redevelopment. The lots that are in the subdivision are not a part of the overlay district. Third, the comprehensive plan has these 3 residential lots designated traditional neighborhood character area. First 2 policies in the TN category are, and I'll quote them, preserve and enhance the integrity and quality of existing residential neighborhoods. The second one, protect stable neighborhoods from incompatible development that could alter established residential development patterns and density. Rezoning these lots to allow them to become a commercial parking lot will be harmful to this neighborhood, to the families and children that live in it. This rezoning will allow the owner of the commercial parcel to sizably increase his building and the number of businesses using his building, and many more cars we pushed into these lots and neighborhoods. Now, we met with the owner to seek to find a solution that might work for all parties, and what we came to realize is that there's no need to expand the existing building other than one that is purely revenue-driven. We learned that the only source of new revenue over recent years is subleasing space that is no longer needed for grocery and vitamin sales. The entire upper floor of this building is used for other small businesses not associated with the nuts and berries business that's on the main floor, or at least on a portion of the main floor, which has now been subdivided further. The only need for expansion is essentially to convert the grocery vitamin business to a commercial real estate business and build new space to lease to others. In order to build the new space, additional parking will be needed. Before I close, I'd like to point out I think a critical fact that's in the staff's report. It's really the elephant in the room. These residential lots, according to staff, and we certainly agree, and as do realtors who've been consulted, have a reasonable economic use as currently zoned. The applicant stated in his application, and he stated to us on site, that he's entitled to the highest and best use for these lots. Well, that's not the law. He's entitled to a reasonable economic use, and these lots could well be developed for residential lots. One value is put on the total of them at $1 million. Again, all along Kendrick, along the same side of the street, similarly situated lots, homes in the 600s and up. In closing, we ask you to recommend disapproval again, based on the criteria that's set forth in the zoning ordinance. This rezoning is not in conformity with the policy intent of the comprehensive plan. This rezoning does not permit a use that is suitable in view of use and development of adjacent nearby properties, and the property has a reasonable economic use as currently zoned. Thank you.
Aaron
Thank you,
Mosier.
Thank you, Mr. Stein.
Aaron Mosier.
Hello, my name's Erin Mosier, and I live at 1282 Kendrick. I'm about 2 houses down from the proposed rezoning. My son Jack is 9 months old. He is up past his bedtime, but tonight this is more important than his bedtime. And he is the reason that I am standing up here in front of you for him and the 28 children that are under the age of 7 that live on our street. On any given day, driving down Kendrick, you'll see me and other moms pushing strollers, children running around, wagons. And you'll also see a neighbor walking over another neighbor's house with a homemade meal. This is a community we've built. We personally supported the city of Brookhaven and what they stood for during that time of voting. Being here is not what any of us would choose, but we are because it is important. We are asking you to protect our families by making this a safe, family-oriented community, where you don't allow commercial businesses to continue creeping down our residential streets and other residential streets in Brookhaven. Don't set that precedent. The facts haven't changed. It's our street, and we don't support it. You don't either, based on your past votes and past arguments. So what are we still here for? I'm recommending that you please vote no again. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mosier.
Dave Bars.
Mr. Barr?
Hi, I'm Dave Bars. I live at 1299 Kendrick Road, which is directly across from the property. Let me just say that my father's work as a site contractor put me through college. I have been a developer myself. I have worked for developers. I am pro-development. Many of the people I stand here representing in this community, and I'd ask that those stand up and raise your hand if you're part of this organization. They are hardworking business owners, managers, and we are pro-business. But we're also pro-family and pro-community. And so on their behalf, I have some questions to ask you, Ms. Dunleavy. First, why should any of us who have collectively invested over $14 million in recent years in the neighborhood assume that our local representation would even consider walking away from the commitments in the long-term plan, the LCI, and the zoning classifications that we relied on when we purchased our properties? Why would we approve a plan that dumps even more traffic onto a residential street that by the city's own traffic study estimates that it is already overburdened by 50% above normal traffic rates. Why does the BPCA lobby against the Walgreens across from the neighborhood, from their neighborhood, yet lobby to gut the LCI in this neighborhood? Why can't we have a peaceful, safe neighborhood like other Brookhaven residents? Why should our residents suffer economic damage because the applicant has spent so much effort to penetrate into the neighborhood instead of spending time trying to collaborate with his neighbors in the LCI overlay? Finally, why would you even consider reversing the overwhelming denial of this request that you already made 60 days ago? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barr.
Larry Stroop.
Mr. Streep?
I've been in the neighborhood. I've been in the neighborhood.
Sorry, your name again was?
My name is Larry Stroop,
Stroop, okay. And you live where?
1230 Kendrick Road.
Thank you.
Been in the neighborhood for 36 years, and really don't want to see that kind of change in the neighborhood. I think it's already been said quite well before I came up here that we want to stay residential, so I oppose.
Okay, thank you. So is that our 10-minute, is that, or, oh,
No, that's a different alarm.
that's a different alarm? Sorry, all right.
The following 8 speakers that are, the following 8 parties that are in opposition do not wish to speak, but would like their comment read into the record.
Okay.
Shane Murphy is opposed.
Can you give me their address as you do it, or if they have it?
1303 Kendrick Road.
Okay.
Rachel Murphy is opposed, 1303 Kendrick Road. Amy Walker Bars is opposed, 1299 Kendrick Road. Ian Ha is opposed, 2729 Tallulah Drive. And Andrea Ha opposed, 2729 Tallulah Drive. Beverly and Jordan Myers, 2785 Grove Street. Jonathan Sweatman, 2746 Grove Street. Diana Sweatman, 2746 Grove Street. And the final speaker card that I have here for opposition, where the party does not wish to speak but would like their comments read into the record, is Alec Sedki. I apologize if I pronounced that name incorrectly, but it's Sedki at 2751 Grove Street. And the statement is, the City of Brookhaven's first traffic study was conducted, and the results showed an unsafe level of traffic and traveling along Kendrick Road. The change in zoning will only increase the number of cars and make the streets unsafe for the children and families who live in the area. And I have no other speaker cards.
Okay. Nobody else wants to speak? If not, we're going to turn it back over to the applicant who had some reserve time. But let's, just give us just a sec. Was there anybody, and want to make sure everybody gets a chance? All right, Ms. Dunleavy. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you turn in a card? Oh, okay. 1207 Kendrick Road, and your name?
They can't.
They can't.
Okay.
They can't.
No, they're just giving it, I think they're just turning in there. All right. Well, okay.
First of all, I wanted to make sure that the commission saw this. This is the petition that was handed up by Dr. Neustadt. These are business owners who support the expansion of the parking for Nuts and Berries, and also customers who support this rezoning application. I'll try and address some of the comments that were made as quickly as possible. First of all, Nuts and Berries is going to need parking whether or not they expand their building, because the city of Brookhaven has a Peachtree Road streetscape plan which will knock out some parking spaces in the right-of-way, thereby causing Nuts and Berries to be underparked, whether they expand or not. Secondly, the expansion that is being proposed is incredibly modest. It is 2,000 square feet at the front of the building to give Nuts and Berries a more street pedestrian aspect to it, in full conformity with what the vision of the overlay is, which is to create walkable, pedestrian-friendly communities. I find it really interesting and somewhat perplexing. Mr. Stein stood up before you and said that, you know, he represents a neighborhood of single-family residential property owners that back up to Shell stations, that back up to 6-story storage buildings, that are, you know, right next to fairly intense commercial uses, and he describes this neighborhood as very desirable and thriving. But for some reason, my client's desire to have 30 additional parking spaces is going to open up Pandora's box and make this neighborhood stop thriving in the middle of some very intense commercial development, stop thriving because he wants 30 parking spaces. The two just don't seem to gel and mix well in my mind. You've got a thriving community with lots of commercial operations going on around it, and yet for some reason these 30 parking spaces are going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. I would submit with respect to the Brookhaven Peachtree Overlay District that the drafters of the overlay district, when they mapped this, were not thinking about where would these businesses park. And that is something that should have been thought about, admittedly, when the overlay district boundaries were developed, but they weren't. This is not going to alter established patterns in this neighborhood, as evidenced by the intense commercial development that's going on all around this neighborhood, and that is still viable, it is still family-friendly, it is still walkable. They are right next to one of the most intense developments in Brookhaven. They are 1 block from Peachtree. Peachtree, since Brookhaven has been founded, was slated for very intense development known as the Brookhaven Peachtree Overlay District. So I really fail to understand how 30 parking spaces is going to tip that balance, and this business needs these parking spaces to remain viable.
All right, thank you, Ms. Donnelly. All right, well, with that, we've heard from the applicant, we've heard from people who are in support of the application, and we've heard from people who are opposed to the applications. With that, if we have no other cards, then we're going to close the public comment section of the meeting and let the commissioners ask any questions of anybody who has been up, or the staff, or anything else. So, anybody wants to be recognized to be, okay? Caitlin,
I have
Ms.
a
Miller?
question for Mr. Stein, as representative of Kona. Where did he go?
Yeah, some of you are going to wind up popping up and down, so just, you know, deal with it. I'm sorry.
I need the answers.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Stein.
Good evening.
One question that came to my mind as the presentations were going forward tonight that I think is good and perhaps wasn't discussed last time. If patrons of the business don't park in the parking lot, then they're going to park on the residential streets, and doesn't that further make your Kona members unhappy? And how would you, if they're not going to park at the business and they're going to park on the street, what's your response?
And I might ask Dave Bars to come up for a moment, who's Vice President of...
Appropriate to answer the question.
Let me present part of that answer, and I think Dave may add some. Currently, I think what the neighborhood is seeing is that there is not a parking problem at Nuts and Berries. What is triggering a future problem is their desire to expand, and the expansion to go from 5,800 to add another 2,000 square feet will mean the loss of many parking spaces they have and have historically had, and that they're grandfathered into having. So its expansion means loss of parking, which is going to create the problem. Currently, we're not seeing a parking problem that is impacting the neighborhood. Dave?
No. No, frequently the parking lot has got 2, 3, 4 cars in it. We're not seeing people parking on the street. And frankly, I can't understand why, if parking is a problem, why we would build over top of parking spaces and then push a resulting amount, or even, frankly, a much greater amount of parking. 30 spaces, we're going to lose 8, now we're going to push 30. One plan proposed 45 spaces across from Shane Murphy,
Okay, all right.
Rachel Murphy, and our house.
All
A
right.
parking lot.
Okay.
I'll add to that. I understand that from when we met out there, the applicant explained that he had a informal sharing arrangement with the business immediately next door so that they help each other out there. It's an
All right, well, I think we were,
Yeah.
yeah, let's keep it addressed
Okay.
at the thing.
So,
Okay.
Yes, I have a question for the applicant. One of the options that is available currently for properties within the overlay is a shared parking arrangement. And I'm curious if the applicant has had any discussions with any of the adjoining property owners within the 700 feet where that might be a possibility.
My understanding is that, excuse me, my understanding, and I'm afraid that Mr. Kick probably didn't hear that question. Did you hear the question, Mark?
I
With
heard the
respect to
question,
shared
but I'm not
parking?
sure what a shared parking arrangement is.
Sharing with other businesses.
Well, actually, the business next door parks in our parking lot every morning and every night. Luckily, their business is before commuters' hours. It's Thrive. They're an exercise place. So they're in there from 7 in the morning until 9. We don't open until 9:30, and they're there from 5 until 7, where we close at 7. So we share our parking with the next door neighbor, which is Thrive. Across the street, I don't know exactly how that's going to pan out. They're starting a new business, but the reason why there is no parking problem right now is because we are using, and we have used for 20 years, the parking that is behind the store.
Okay, we want to keep it to the shared parking question. Thank you, though.
Thank you.
Have you approached other businesses, however, to try and share their parking?
Oh, for us to share their parking?
Yes.
I assumed that Thrive would allow us to use theirs, and on Valentine's Day, the flower shop uses ours. I mean, the 3 businesses do share parking. They are under a more critical parking arrangement than I am.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
That's one of the problems. If I
Yeah.
can answer it any clearer, I can.
No, that's
Okay,
fine.
thank you.
All right, thank you.
I have a question for Mr. Stein. As I read through the email trail, the one sentence that kind of pops out to me says, "We remain open to a solution that addresses the needs of all stakeholders." What might that be? If Mr. Kick is a stakeholder, what solution would somehow accommodate Mr. Kick?
Well, the solution would be one that would allow, and I can't, we haven't had a discussion of this in full with him or even amongst the board fully.
Wasn't that the idea of deferring and sending it back to the applicant in the neighborhood?
Let me just finish what I was going to say, and it may help explain a little bit better. It would be to rezone the property to a residential category such as R50 to allow up to 4 single-family homes. Right now, he has 3 lots zoned R100. One solution that would, it doesn't allow him to expand the business, but if it is revenue that he's looking for, then there may be a solution where we would work together with him to rezone his property, the residential lots, to have 4 lots there instead of the current 3 lots, and to expand the amount of money that he could make as a result.
Your solution is financial, it's not operational.
Well, we see his problem is financial. His problem is financial for the next door property, for his building. And so he has a financial problem there. The way we can help out is we can expand and make him more money on this one to give him the revenue in order to help him with his financial problem. I'm not sure why any of us are required to step into somebody's financial problem. But we are willing to do so because he's been a good business owner, and we'd like to help make it happen. And it could be a win-win where there are 4 homes there instead of 3, and he is able to garner a much greater revenue as a result of that. So that would be a win-win solution.
Thank you. All right, switch sides.
Yes, Mr. Stein, you can come back, I'm sorry.
There's a pattern forming here, I think.
I think as a commission, it's our duty to look at the land use issue as it relates to properties that are being presented to us, and really to get into the financial that's not in our purview, to evaluate that as a part of the land use. How are you looking to collaborate with the property owner and the neighborhood that you represent so that everybody have a true win-win situation? Brookhaven is very unique. It's a city that have a mix of uses for the land that exists within Brookhaven. We love businesses. We love the neighborhoods. We love businesses to support the neighborhood, and we love the neighborhood to support the businesses. And with you representing the neighborhood, I don't think I've really heard of a strategy or an attempt to present a strategy on the land use issues that are in front of us that we are reevaluating. Would you care to share with us what's your land use strategy that is specific to a workout deal or something that we can evaluate in this process?
I think Mr. Levy asked the question of the applicant about shared parking arrangements, and that sounds like one land use solution to this. Across the street from this parcel is the Shell station, which is right now in front of the Board of Zoning Appeals seeking variances because the Shell station is going to be torn down, and a bank with a second floor on that bank is going to, at least that's what they're proposing to construct there. Kona representatives have been meeting with those individuals and have worked out pretty much agreeable conditions to allow that to proceed. The owner of the property, Mr. Kick, may want to as well seek out shared parking arrangement with that business. They're creating a good bit of parking on that parcel. I think, again, as you've said, Mr. Funny, your job is not to resolve a financial issue, but yet it is a financial issue, at least according to the applicant, that is driving this application. This business is functional and surviving and stable in its current fashion. If you walk inside, the actual space for the nuts and berries business itself has recently been reduced inside. There's a wall that's gone up to create perhaps, he was explaining to us, someone else is going to lease out a portion of the main floor. So we're not clear why, or what we are clear on is this is not a nuts and berries issue. It's a building that doesn't drive enough revenue and a desire to expand it. And that's not a land use issue. And so I don't have a solution to a non-land use issue in an application that doesn't present what is really a land use issue.
Thank you. Does that answer? Do you have anything else to say? Commissioner Karen?
I know this is somewhat out of order, but my client, Mr. Kick, did not hear this question and understand it. And so I have been writing notes back and forth and would like to clarify his.
Okay, I have a question for Ms. Dunleavy.
Very good.
Proper, and that is, have you explored, as they have, I think the question revolved around similar situations like on Dresden where there's parking in the back, is that?
Like with the Haven and places like that.
Well,
where there's shared
actually,
parking
it's more picking up on the fact that within the overlay, shared parking is expressly encouraged and can result in a permitted reduction of off-street parking requirements. So since that's a possible avenue, I was curious if the applicant had explored that as a way to perhaps achieve what he wants to do.
Shared parking has been explored, because parking is a a pretty serious problem in spite of what the anecdotal observations of the neighborhood are stating, or counsel for the neighborhood. Chef Chip DeZormo is here. He is the owner and operator of Brookhaven Bistro, which is housed in the Nuts and Berries business. It generates 70% of the traffic that comes in and out of that site. Chef DeZormo was just telling me that he gets 2 to 3 complaints a week from customers. Where do I park? I can't park. With respect to the shared parking arrangement, if you're coming down Peachtree or coming up Peachtree, the clear, obvious entrance to Nuts and Berries is where it is now, not further down or backing up, first of all. And so there is a concern that if there was a shared parking arrangement that satisfied, and I don't think it would because of the volume, satisfied the numbers that are required at these peak times, that people would actually park at Thrive or park at the flower shop and walk back to Nuts and Berries. They probably, as I said right at the beginning of my presentation, build it and they will come. If you can't park it, they're going to pass right on by. And they probably would pass right on by to another business. So those shared parking arrangements have been explored. There's just, I'm sure you're familiar with the sites next door. They're very small. And so any kind of overflow parking that they could offer would be in the neighborhood of a couple spaces, nothing more during those peak times.
Okay.
And so it's just simply not sufficient.
Thank you. I think that's, I could just tell you what I struggle with. I see both sides. On the one hand, I personally, I'm interested in not letting commercial properties move further on deeper. But on the other hand, I think I see this building as being kind of locked in things. So I will entertain at this time, if there aren't any more questions for staff or for anyone else, make sure everybody's got everything they need. And I'll entertain a motion.
I have a question for
Okay.
staff. I needed a little clarification, maybe I didn't hear well enough. Talking about changing or widening the sidewalk in front of Nuts and Berries and Thrive, is it going to be made bigger, or other than the expansion? Obviously, if he expands his business, that's going to take up some parking spaces, but are there plans by the city to expand the sidewalk or other access that's going to reduce his parking count?
Well, I know Ms. Dunleavy spoke to that about the Brookhaven Peachtree Overlay District. Technically, if Mr. Kick was to in the future expand the property, then he would have to bring the property into compliance with the Brookhaven Peachtree Overlay District, which requires a pedestrian walkway to be provided in the front yard, in the front along Peachtree Road. Technically, that width is consistent of 20 feet, 5 foot of landscape strip, and a 15-foot sidewalk. So that, in essence, would take away from the parking that's nearest to Peachtree Road. I believe that's what the applicant was referring to.
So if nothing happens, then we are where we are. It's when they expand or if they expand.
Yes.
Okay. Well, then I'll call for a motion. This is very silent here.
One question for staff, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
The property that I'm looking at behind or just north of the subject property is zoned as C2 commercial that abuts the back of the 3 subject properties.
I think it's a storage unit.
The storage facility?
To the best of my recollection, the storage facility is Zone C2.
The commercial too?
Yes, but Thrive and the flower shop are Zone C1.
Okay, so I am still no motion?
I'll make a motion. I make a motion to deny RZ 13-15.
All right, we have a motion to deny RZ 13-15. Do we
I'll
have a-
second it.
And we have a motion and we have a second. So is there any discussion on this?
Question for staff. If the commission
Okay,
that
we,
moves to deny.
yeah, the rules are a little bit, okay, go ahead.
All right, if the commission moves to deny the applicant, what time frame exists for the applicant to reapply, perhaps with a different site plan and some other application to rezone?
The planning commission is a recommending body, so if you were to recommend denial and your recommendation were to travel to the council would then have to deliberate the case as well, along with the public hearing. If the council were to deny the case, then there would be a 2-year waiting penalty for reapplication.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have any more discussion on? I think we're all okay. Then, all in favor of the motion to deny the application signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, I'm going to call hands just to make sure I saw that. Okay. All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Nay. So we have 4-3. The application will go to the council with a recommendation to deny. Thank you. And I just want to say, I know everybody's going to leave, a bunch of people are going to leave while we're, and it's, you could tell, this is a tough situation for everyone, making this decision. And we're doing what everybody, as I said earlier, we're just doing what we think is best. So this will go to the council. What's the date of the council, by the way?
It's actually Tuesday, June 10th. The schedule is very short this month.
Okay, so
It is June 10th,
Okay.
this coming Tuesday.
this coming Tuesday, June 10th, City Council will hear the recommendation to deny this application. Thank you. We'll take just a few minutes while everybody moves about. And I appreciate everybody's, I appreciate everybody being polite and respectful of time and each other. Thank you.
You were the only one. That's right. I almost voted yes.
All right, I'm going to ask everybody to move out pretty quickly since we have a full evening. But thank you for showing up here. I assume you're all going to the food truck roundup.
Mr. Chairman, if you could call the next case, please.
Okay. Did I hear a move along, please? Okay, so, all right, the next is new business, and this is RZ 14-07, Donaldson Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Case before you is RZ 1407. The applicant is Mosaic Homes LLC. The property is located at 3600 Donaldson Drive, 18th District, Land Lot 306. The acreage of the property is 4.296 acres. The current zoning is R75. The applicant has requested this rezoning to rezone the subject property from R75 to RA8 for construction of a 34-unit single-family attached development. The site is currently developed with a church and is adjacent to RA5 to the north, Traditional Neighborhood Development District to the east across Donaldson Drive, RM75 to the south, and R75 to the west. Again, the applicant has requested a rezoning from R75 to RA8 to construct a 34-unit townhome development with a proposed density of 7.9 dwelling units per acre. The future development map for the city calls for the area to be categorized under the suburban character area, which does allow for up to 8 dwelling units per acre. And just to reiterate, the subject property and the request is for a density of 7.9 units. Staff will note that we have made a recommendation of approval with conditions, and we also have identified 8 conditions. I would like to quickly go over condition number 1 and condition number 5 for just further, condition number 5 for further clarification. Although the staff has recommended approval, we have recommended approval to limit the property to 32 townhome units, thus lowering the density from 7.9 as presented by the applicant to 7.45. The 2 units that staff has recommended that be removed are units 27 and 28, which is centrally located to the subject property. We felt that it may be more appropriate to convert that area into an open space, green space. Also, specific to condition number 5, staff felt that taking into consideration the current built environment of the area, especially considering the properties across Donaldson Drive that are zoned TND that have homes that with the current front facade facing the street, we felt that that would be appropriate for this development as well, and therefore requested that, I apologize, sorry. It's condition number 3, not number 5. I apologize for that. And then have stated that units 29 through 34, which maintain frontage along Donaldson, to have front facade facing the street. Staff would stipulate to the report. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, so with that, we will open the public we'll hear from the applicant. And again, the applicant gets 10 minutes. Those in support of the application get 10 minutes, and those in opposition get 10 minutes, and the speakers get no more than 3 minutes apiece. So,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, I'm Doug Dillard with Wiseman, Noack, Curry, and Wilco. We represent the applicant. This is 4.2 acres, as Ben has pointed out to you. And if you look at the densities on each side, you got RA5 to the east, RM75 to the west, TDN across Donaldson, and also that is adjacent to existing RM75, which is government subsidized housing. And then to the rear, we got our park. So our overall density is 7.9. If you look at the average between the RM75 and the RA5 that's on each side of us, that's an average of 8.86, and we're at 7.9. So we're sort of in between, and we provide a good transition for that development. The concern that we've got relative to staff's conditions, which are all acceptable to us, except the reduction of the two units. And if you look at the 2 units that they're talking about pulling away, they're sort of in the heart of the project. And I don't really understand staff's logic for trying to eliminate those 2 units. It says 3 road frontages are placed within a constructed central area. It's not integral to the rest of the development. It's in the middle. I don't know how it's not integral. Moreover, the 2 clustered units are not consistent with other units that are located along the perimeter of the property. Well, that's true. I mean, it's an internal piece of property. Now, we're adjacent to a 44-acre public park. I'm not sure that it makes a lot of sense for us to have to provide additional open space, particularly when the loss of those 2 lots is worth $500,000. So we accept all the staff's conditions except for number 1, which talks about the reduction of those 2 units. So we would ask that you that you approve this, but do not, but approve it at 32 units, at 34 units, not at 32 units. So, and I will reserve my remaining time for rebuttal.
At 32 or 34? 32. I
We
think.
had, wait a minute, I thought we had 34 and we were reducing it to 32.
I'm sorry. That's right. I'm sorry.
We had 34, we're going down to 32. So they're recommending 32, we need 34. And when you look at it, I just don't think it has that much of a relationship with the public health, safety, and welfare relative to doing that, particularly in light of the fact that on the west side of the property, we've got that stream and we got all that open space that we can't use. So we would like to reserve our remaining time for rebuttal. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Dillard. Okay, so do we have any?
I have no speaker cards either for or against in my possession.
What in the world is going on?
What, I know, there's a I'm waiting to come up with the next application here.
I think I'm being handed one.
Okay.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
This is one in opposition. I
right.
do not have any speaker cards in favor.
All right, so there are no speaker cards in favor.
I have
There's-
one speaker card in opposition, but he does not wish to speak. He wishes it to be read into the record.
All right, he's changed his mind.
Okay. Scott Raven.
Good evening. I'm Scott Raven. I live at 3792 Ellsworth Way, which is, if you take a look at the map, is Prime Central 4 directly opposite this. The thing that I am concerned about in opposition is if I take a look at the drawing and where the driveway is placed, I'm not sure it lines up with recommendation number 6, which was to be adjacent to the Danbury Park opening. And I would need that to be enforced in order to be supportive. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. All right, since we don't have a, do you want to reserve? Yeah, you have reserved, come on. Yeah. You've already, that's right.
I'm not sure I understood what he said.
I think he was questioning, there's actually, you've already agreed, you said you agreed to line up the driveways, the
Which is
street.
across the street,
with
yeah,
Street.
right, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
But I don't think that causes you to lose your lot.
Which?
No, I mean, it's across, if you would pull up the,
The site plan doesn't have it lining up. The recommendation is that, from the staff, is that it lined up, and this is part of your time, so we'll.
The applicant agreed to that condition
Okay,
number
and you
6.
agreed to it.
yeah,
Okay.
we agreed to it, but if it causes us to lose some, we'll just need to talk about between now and the commission,
Okay, we'll
because we
when
don't want to lose
deliberate.
another lot by making it
Uh,
curly, but I think it's already lined up
Okay.
across the street.
All
Yeah,
right.
is it not, Susan?
All right, that's okay. No, let's not have a discussion back and forth on thing. We'll come back. Okay, so we're going to close the public. There's nobody else who wants to speak, so we will close the public comment section, and we'll open it up now for the commission. And Susan, I'm sorry, did you have a comment?
I do not.
Okay. I just didn't want to get into this back and, so. All right, we'll start. Yeah, we'll start. We'll do it again, and then we'll start next one down here.
I have a question for the applicant.
Mr. Dillard, I think there's a question for you.
Does the builder intend for this to be a gated community?
Is it going to be gated? Will not be gated.
Oh, Mr. Dillard, why don't you stay right there? Before the meeting, you handed us some promotional materials, and just glancing through, on one of the pages here, it says, you'll find an intimate neighborhood of only 24 classically styled homes. So-
That's not that's an example of what they're going to do.
We
That
built
is
that.
not,
The-
he built that earlier, that's another project.
Community next door, we built. This community will be very, very, almost similar,
Okay.
except for color and.
This is very, it's a pro
Yeah,
forma, not even.
that
for
was
this.
given to you as an example.
All right, I didn't think that you were amending down to that.
Oh, no,
or-
no.
No, no,
Or you
no.
already had published with the
But
typo.
like
but-
Rob said, they developed the property next door.
Just
Okay.
to the south.
Okay.
The
The
piece that is
RM
indexed.
75 piece.
We developed that and built it, and
Okay.
Very successful.
Good,
And-
thank you.
That's it?
All right. Jeff? Shannon?
I'm thinking.
Questions for staff. The applicant mentioned that there's a park, 44-acre park, I think he said, next door to this property. Can you elaborate on that, and what's the connection between the park and this proposed development?
The subject property does abut Blackburn Park. There is no connection that I'm aware of. He's referencing it as the argument related to the removal of 2 additional units centrally located. But as you can see from the site plan itself, there is not a direct connection.
Okay. So staff opinion that by removing those 2 property, that will create some green space internal to the development?
Yes, and there's other factors associated, as we stated in the report. If you take into consideration the built environment within that area, it's mostly related to the layout of the development and what you find. Across the street along Donaldson to that TND development as well, you would find similar development. To the south, which is the development that the applicant constructed, it's oriented where the townhomes are located to the perimeter of the property without any units centrally located. The green space in this case for the subject property is naturally occurring due to the fact that there is a stream located adjacent to Blackburn Park. But we also want, and that is an area that's somewhat passively could be utilized by the applicant or by the neighbor or by the neighborhood. But to create a central open green space may be a benefit as a whole.
If I could add to that too, with the condition relative to the alignment of the curb cut across from Danbury Park Place, and with the staff's recommendation that the 2 units centrally located not be located there, it was more of a design issue rather than a density issue because the area calls for suburban character, which is 8 units per acre, and they were at 7.9. So we really don't have an issue with the density. It's more or less the design issue that we were concerned about with having those 2 units completely surrounded by a driveway. So just to add additional comment.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for?
I have a question for Mr. Dillard, please. Sir, the green space behind it, that's got the creek, are you guys planning on doing anything there to make it accessible to the residents, or is it just going to be wild?
Yeah, to the extent we're allowed to deal with it, it's in floodplain, and it's along a creek, and we got buffer issues that we got to deal with. So we've got some undisturbed situations we got to comply with, but obviously we want to make it, to the extent it's accessible, we want to make it accessible to our residents.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, if there's no other questions, then I will entertain a motion. We're having a hard time with motions this evening. Oh, you could
I'll
turn
make a
mic, or
motion.
just microphones, right?
Right. I'll make a motion to approve rezoning petition RZ 14-07, subject to recommendations made by the staff.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the application as conditioned by the staff with the 8 conditions. Does anybody, so we'll have any discussion on the motion? Nope, then I'll call the question. All in favor of the motion to approve RZ 14-07 as conditioned by staff recommendations, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. We'll give it just a minute, and then we'll start up. We'll do the next. Then we'll do.
Thank you.
Okay. Next application this evening is Lost my place. RZ 14-08, and an application to rezone Proper Vickery subdivision. Ben?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The case before you is RZ 14-088. The applicant is S&S Development International LLC. The property location is 1875, 1883, 1893, and 1901 Windale Court, the 18th District, Land Law 325. The subject property is currently zoned R100. The applicant has requested rezoning to the subject property from R100 to RA5 to develop a 10-lot single-family detached subdivision. The subject property is currently 2.67 acres in size, comprised of 4 individual lots of record. The site is surrounded by a single-family detached home on all sides and bordered by a mix of RA5 and R100 zoning districts. Just for clarification, I would like to point to our location map. And as referred in the staff report, although it's according to the official zoning map of the city of Brookhaven, adjacent property to the east are shown to be zone R100. However, after staff review of rezoning documentation, we have confirmed that the adjacent properties to the east at 1911 Windale Court, 3834, 3844, and 3838 Chambly Dunwoody Road were previously approved to RA5 by DeKalb County, pursuant to zoning case CZ 05-05. Additionally, you will find to the north of the subject property across Windale Court, shown on our zoning maps as R100 as well, which is the 5-lot cluster of single-family homes. However, staff has, again, located documentation from DeKalb County regarding those sites, and I'll just read out the addresses: 1894, 1902, 1910, 1918, and 1926 Windale Court, showing these properties were zoned R60 pursuant to case number CZ 04-125. Staff would additionally point out to the west and northwest properties, those are shown correctly as R100. And again, would like to state the larger surrounding area does contain a mix of single-family residential zoning districts, primarily of RA5 and R100 zoning districts. To note regarding the comprehensive plan, the subject property is under the suburban character area, which does allow up to 8 dwelling units per acre. The request as presented is proposing a density of 3.75 units to the acre. Staff would note that we have recommended approval of RZ 1408 with conditions and have outlined 4 conditions for consideration by the Planning Commission. And again, staff would reiterate that we have recommended approval of RZ 1408 with recommended conditions and will stipulate to the report. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so we will, with that, we will open the public meeting and ask the applicant.
Good evening. I'm Kathy Sickert with Smith, Gambrell, and Russell. With me is Robert Greist, who I'm hoping is going to take over this job for me so that I don't have to be out until 9 and 10 o'clock every night. So he's going to make the bulk of this presentation, but I wanted to introduce him. And I also wanted to explain to you a little bit about why this area is so odd. I think, as staff has explained, it's clear that there are other properties that were zoned differently. But when you all adopted DeKalb County's maps and everybody was painstakingly trying to get it translated into a map that Brookhaven could adopt, there were some that were missed. And this is, I believe, what prompted the audit, as a matter of fact, so that these glitches could be fixed. And it's important for you to understand that because my client actually also owns the RA5 piece that's out in front, and the intent is to develop as 2-phased projects. We have one person, and he is here, who owns the tract in the middle, but we do anticipate at some point that he would join in, and therefore the whole thing could be combined as one project, and it's being designed to be able to do that from a design standpoint. So I wanted to make sure that you all were aware of that history before Robert tells you about the project.
Good evening. My name is Robert Greist. As Kathy said, we're with the law firm Smith, Gambrell, and Russell here on behalf of S&S Development. We're here tonight to request a recommendation of approval for a rezoning application with respect to the 4 lots that were just mentioned. More specifically, we're requesting a rezoning from R100 to RA5. The purpose of this is to put in a 10-home, single-family detached home development surrounded by a cul-de-sac, which we would also be building that cul-de-sac that would come off of Wendell Court. The existing uses are 4 single-family homes. Each was built in the 1960s. All the homes are currently under contract with S&S, our client, and closing will take place later this month. The surrounding uses on Wendell Court are entirely residential, and the larger area consists of almost exclusively residential as well, with a mix of R100 and newer RA5 cluster developments. Directly across Wendell Court, as was mentioned, is a R60 development. And additionally, as was already noted, this is actually phase 2 of a 2-step process. The 2005 rezone of the 2 lots on Chamblee-Dunwoody were done in 2005 under the DeKalb jurisdiction and would be phase 1 of this project. If approved, the finished product will be a 10-home development surrounded by a cul-de-sac. I've got some streetscape renderings here, which would give you an idea of what the houses would look like. It's obviously upscale and reflects the demand in Brookhaven for high-quality cluster homes located on more compact lots than traditional residential. This type of development is fully allowed by the comprehensive land use plan under the suburban character area, and additionally is consistent with the trend towards infill development on smaller lots, which is already occurring on Wendell Court, as well as the larger area on Chamblee-Dunwoody and Harts Mill. That being said, we think our proposal is a particularly good fit for Wendell Court and the existing homes because the proposed density is not as high as many of the other RA5 developments in the area. In fact, this would be a lower density than 4 of the 5 surrounding neighborhoods that planning staff identified. Just for reference, the comp plan would allow up to 8 units per acre. RA5 district allows 5, but our proposed density with the 10 homes is only 3.75 units per acre. Through the appropriate attention to screening and setbacks, we believe that this development would not negatively impact any of the current residents of the neighborhood. And finally, the developer will provide new sidewalks and landscaping along Wendell Court frontage and the proposed cul-de-sac, which was part of staff's recommendation. Overall, we think this development achieves an appropriate balance between traditional large lot residential and the prevailing trend towards higher density cluster developments in the area. We are agreeable to all of staff's proposed conditions, and we're happy to work with Planning Commission on any other concerns that they may have. We'd be happy to work with Brookhaven with this project, and with that, I respectfully ask this commission to recommend approval of the application.
Let me add one final thing. The application that we have pending is for 10 lots. You all have this odd requirement in your code that if you file a new site plan, even if it's to improve the project, it has to be deferred. And we actually had agreed with neighbors on the cul-de-sac to reduce 10 lots to 8. So if you are inclined to approve the application, we appropriately suggest that it be reduced to 8. And in terms of the quality of the product on this, we're talking 3,000 square foot homes and up, a very high price point. I think it's a product you'll be very pleased to have in Brookhaven.
And I assume you're reserving your time?
And we will reserve our time. We're going to learn how to work this.
Well, no, when you do, you'll need to tell us. I didn't know that we even had that, did you? That was the first time. Okay, and with that, I think, are you, this is a good, are you?
I'll see how many speakers we have.
You can, okay, great, all right. Okay, so do we have any comment cards?
In favor, Jennifer Murphy.
Can you ask how many comments?
Yeah, how many do you have all together? Are we?
1 in favor. We have 12 in opposition, 4 of which are deferring to 1 speaker to speak on their behalf. So
Okay,
that
so-
would be a total of 8 based on what I have in opposition, as
So
far as
I
those
will-
that choose to speak.
So I'm going to announce, so Commissioner Funny is going to,
Oh, I just have some more, sorry.
yeah, well, I think that I think that reinforces that Commissioner Funny has a previous, he's got to get out of here. So we still have, for the record, we still have a quorum. So we'll proceed. So give me just a minute here.
I'm going to ask.
Okay, state your name and.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Murphy, and I reside at 2012 Mendenhall Circle, which is the community that is just on the other side of the proposed community. I represent the Mendenhall Homeowners Association. Mendenhall is comprised of 25 homes. This particular community, we got the zoning letter in the mail. There's been no attempt from the developer to contact our community and have any discussions with us. We would like the developer to do that so that the neighbors that are going to be negatively impacted by this community are aware of what's going on. Right now, we currently maintain a buffer between in this particular community, it'd be 3 houses that are impacted. There's currently a buffer between the houses that are there now and our homes. There's a lot of foliage that is in that area. The biggest concern from our homeowners is what's going to happen to that. Are those trees going to remain there? Right now, we have the benefit of not directly looking into the neighbors that are behind us when that foliage is in full bloom in a season such as we are now. We just want to make sure that that continues because we have a feeling that would negatively impact our property values down the line, as well as not being directly on top of the neighbors that are behind us. So I guess what we're saying is that we would like some more information about how this proposed neighborhood is going to impact us.
Okay. Tell me your last name again, I'm sorry.
Murphy.
Murphy. Okay.
And I'm at 2012 Mendenhall Circle, which is Lot 8 on there.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. Do we have anybody?
There are no more cards relative to support.
Okay. I guess that wasn't in,
Okay, I'm sorry?
I don't know what that, was that in, I guess. yeah.
It was noted as support.
Okay, okay, so let's
With the
move on to, okay,
Mr. Chairman?
yeah, please.
Okay,
Yeah, just everybody just kind of, Ms. Murphy? Yeah, please. Just
So are you calling for opposition?
calling for opposition.
The following 4 cards that are in opposition are deferring their time to someone else to speak on their behalf in opposition. That is Vicky Ara at 3799 Mill Creek Court, Jeffrey Stair at 3764 Mill Creek Court, Scott Salson at 3791 Mill Creek Court, and Linda Montreal at 3773 Mill Creek Court. And they are allowing Russell Posey to speak on their behalf in opposition. So Russell Posey would be the next speaker.
Okay. And just bear with me because my hearing sometimes. Your last name again was?
Posey.
Posey, that's what I thought I heard, okay.
Mr. Chairman, Planning Commission members, my name is Russ Posey. My wife and Carol and I live at 3795 Mill Creek Court, which is the master planned and platted subdivision immediately to the west of the subject property. As individual homeowners and as members of the Harts Mill Homeowners Association, we want to be on record that we are generally supportive of well-planned development, including higher density residential development that will contribute more to an enjoyable, participatory, and neighborhood-centric Brookhaven. We oppose this particular rezoning application as we believe it to be inconsistent toward and negatively impactful of the goal of creating a better neighborhood. There are a few technical matters with the application that we would like to address. I might as well get to the main content. The applicant, as stated, is S&S Development International, LLC. I possess the rights to that name in Georgia, effective June 3rd of 2014. I did not authorize anyone to submit an application under that name. So I think we have some confusion about the propriety of the applicant. Would you like to see the Secretary of State's confirmation?
Probably, do we want to put it into record, yeah. I'm not saying we don't want to see it, but I think that's the proper.
Sure.
We assume you're telling what you just told us is on there, so, okay. Okay.
Our issues of technical nature really revolve around the, what we consider to be effectively spot zoning within a master planned, platted prior development. What has happened here is that there's been a master development similar to most of the developments in the neighborhood that occurred in the 80s, where there were larger parcels of property, in this particular case, larger residential lots. And this rezoning is not a comprehensive rezoning of a neighborhood. It is, in effect, picking and choosing among select properties, and is, in our belief, surreptitiously attempting to avoid good planning by creating a cul-de-sac that allows for 35-foot wide front yards that otherwise would be required to be larger. We, again, have no issue whatsoever with higher density in the neighborhood. We do have issues with significant traffic problems throughout the neighborhood. We feel that this type of micro-development is not within the spirit of good planning for the community and the neighborhood. The property immediately to the east has sat fallow for quite some time now. It was rezoned in '05. If there is going to be higher density here, we would appreciate, as neighbors, at least having an opportunity to discuss with the development team, if there is a development team, a master plan for all of this property. And we believe that to do a comprehensive master plan of the entire subdivision is the appropriate way to plan for higher density here. So we would respectfully, one, request that we have an improper applicant, and two, that we would have the opportunity before this recommendation would go to City Council, that we would be presented with an opportunity to further discuss this matter with the developers.
Thank you, Mr. Posey.
Ronald Darracott.
Mr. Chairman and council members, I'm a member.
And your name
of
again?
this street.
Ronald
Darracott.
Darracott, and you live where?
1880 Wendell Court.
Okay.
I'm directly across the street from the proposed development. And when the subdivision was originally developed in 1966, there were 10 homes built, all R100. It's a wooded area, a lovely setting, specimen trees, and there are 2 catch basins that come off of the street. You talk about land use. We'll be directly affected by the drainage and water handling capacity of this development. If you see there on the drawing, there's 2 retention ponds, one that fronts on Wendell Court, and the other one goes to the back of that development that's lower down. It is already, as shown on this drawing, into the buffer area that was required for this type zoning. But the water handling thing is where I'm concerned, because I'm across the street. I'm downstream from where the water would flow. Zoning is not just an up or down vote on a meeting like this. The Mendenhall property that's behind this was A5. It's a beautiful neighborhood, but there's some water runoff. Some of the properties that make up this new subdivision have been impacted by this water runoff. They've had to, at their own expense, put in special drainage handling. The catch basin that goes with 1893 has a head wall that's almost at the corner of the house. It goes from there down to the catch basin on that side of the street. Then it goes across to the catch basin on the other side of the street to 1888. 1888, at that point, it goes to a junction box 45 degrees to the property line, which is next to my lot. Then from there, it goes to a head wall that is between the 2 houses on the property line. That, through the years, the subdivision was completed about 1968. I moved there in '79. Prior homeowners had at their expense to fixed the yard because it had eroded into deep gullies as a result of the water that existed for the original subdivision. Now we got Mendenhall that comes down through there. Now you're proposing a bigger subdivision and hydrology studies. I couldn't find in any of the plans that was submitted for this project. I went through what you had online. There's about 85 pages. And the hydrology study I didn't find. The civil engineering I didn't find. All I'm trying to say to you is that land use does affect people that's not part of this, but it's across the street. Now, later on, if you have a comprehensive plan and the whole neighborhood's included, the original drainage that was in the subdivision went down, the easement went down the property line. And as I say, it was originally, it dumped between the two houses, effectively eroding and limiting the use of those lots. Now you're going to have a cul-de-sac street that opens directly in front of 1888, and I don't see on the drawing where the drainage is even handled off the new street. Those detention ponds can't even access water coming off that street. If you look, they're on the opposite end of the development. Now, you're going to have water running down that cul-de-sac right into the street today. You got only 2 catch basins, and I don't even know where they are on that drawing. So what I'm suggesting to you is we have had water handling issues through the years. You know, the Weather Service says that we have an average rainfall about 45 to 48 inches a year. There have been some months when we got 14 inches. So you get all that coming at once, then it can impact us in a bad way. And I think I'm submitting to you that these things need to be pre-planned ahead of time. Now, the development originally, the builders are gone. There's nobody there to address them to. Once these properties are sold, I don't object to anybody selling their property, but when you come in there with a subdivision like this without handling the water properly, it limits the use that we can have. It might even degrade our value where we couldn't even sell it in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Tim Pierce.
My name is Tim Pierce, and I live at 1874 Wendell Court. And I live there with my mom, Jean Pierce. She's the actual owner of the property. And she asked me to express her objection to the proposed zoning this before the board. Her primary concern is that she's going to be on an island, zoning island in that area, and it's going to devalue her property a lot more than what it is currently.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pierce.
David Bushbaum.
How many more do we, how many are in there altogether? Just 1 second, Mr. Bump.
There are 6 more that wish to speak and 2 more that would like for their notes to be identified in the record.
Okay, so before you start, I mean, we're obviously, I think this is going to be out of time. This is the 10 minutes. We're up on the 10 minutes unless somebody makes a motion to extend it. If we do, we'll extend it to everyone, to those opposed, those in support, and everyone else. So,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we extend the time for public comment for both those in opposition and those for this property by 10 minutes.
okay.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor of extending it for 10 minutes for all parties? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Sorry.
Thank you.
One of those procedural things, with a limit of 3 minutes per person. Is still,
I appreciate
still
that very
exists.
much because obviously there are a lot of people who feel strongly about the situation, and I'm one of them. I'm David Buxbaum. I live directly across the street at 1888 Wendell Court, and I agree with the speakers who have already gone before me. You look at this plan, and it is just kind of ridiculous on its face. To put that many houses on such a small area, to have those long convoluted driveways in order to get access to them, to have to put a new cul-de-sac in. Yes, if you divide the number of houses by the total acreage, yeah, it looks good, it's under 4 houses per acre, but if you take out the cul-de-sac that they're building, if you take out these ridiculously long driveways, and you look at the amount of space that's actually left to build the houses on, it's quite a bit more than 5 houses per acre. The individual lot sizes, the proportion of the houses to the lots are much greater than the other surrounding developments, even the ones that have already been developed across the street, and they're not directly across the street. I am directly across the street. The houses that are, the 5 lots that were previously developed are closer to the entrance to the subdivision, not directly across the street. I would argue that the other houses at the end of the street that are not being redeveloped and that do not look like they're going to be redeveloped anytime soon are actually closer to this property than the ones that have been redeveloped. My biggest concern about situation, echoes my neighbor on Darracott right next to me, is a drainage. I look at this property and what I see is a giant funnel that aims right down at my driveway. My house is the lowest one on the street. The catch basin that's there now is right in the front of my front yard. Right now, we're okay, but when Mendenhall, as people have said, when Mendenhall was developed several years ago, a lot more additional water came from across the street than had been previously. The houses that are there now, that are subject to being torn down to be redeveloped, have had to deal with all this water. Now we're going to have all the water that's landing on that property that now soaks into the ground, running off the houses, running off the driveways, running off the cul-de-sac. It will have nowhere to go. They have 2 little catch basins in there. You look at the contour lines on the plan, the catch basins are not at the low point of the property. The cul-de-sac is at the low point of the property. The property is a giant funnel that faces directly to my house. The problem is we won't know if it's a problem or not until after the developers are long gone, the properties have been sold, people live there, I have a problem, Mr. Darracott has a problem. Who do we go to get that problem solved? It's too late at that point. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, sir. Okay. And keep in mind, if you divide by the number, the 10 extra minutes by 3, it's not going to work for everybody. So, you know.
Part of the Hartsville Association.
All right. Are you Mr.? All right. You come up.
He's saying he's covered.
He's good.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay. Thank you, sir. And tell me again, the address or the...
3772 Mill Creek Court.
Okay. Man. Okay.
Deborah Young, 5 Concourse Parkway.
I actually live at 3771 Mill Creek, and Chairman, I thank you for the time to speak.
You were going to have to tell me where Concord Parkway was otherwise, but okay, you don't need to.
It's
No,
the
that's
office
fine.
address. I was writing in a force of habit. I'm one of the people that's going to be impacted on Mill Creek Court. When you look at the prior diagram, which the developers conveniently left off of this map, it's actually to the north of this property, I believe, right on the side. And initially, and I agree with everything Mr. Posey said, he is the representative of the association. And initially, when I filled out the comment card, I intended to defer to him, and I agree with everything that he has said. I would ask the commission to seriously consider not only what Windale Court has indicated in terms of the funnel effect and the impact on their properties, but also on how it's going to impact Hartsmill. And I was so outraged by their careless disregard for any communication with us. I didn't even receive something in the mail. My property is right to the back of what they're planning to develop. And I moved from South Florida, where I was on the homeowner association of a 3,000 single-family home. We went through transition from St. Joe, which is part of Arvida. So I've been through that whole process with developers. And never at any time were the homeowners completely ignored from the process. And that's what they've done. They've come in with very little, pictures of some nice houses, and that's fine. All the houses in Brookhaven pretty much are nice, so that's fine. But what they're ignoring and what they haven't communicated to you, excuse me, is that there's a huge drainage problem in Hartsmill now. My neighbors across the street, and we're only 28 single-family homes, that are on the other side of Side Street, as you go down the road, have had to build, some of them, individual plans to deal with the runoff from Side Street because the builders failed to take into account the runoff because we're lower than Side Street. We're lower than Windale. We're lower than Mendenhall. So my property's on, I guess, a little less than a third of an acre. I look out to the woods, which coming from South Florida is a godsend. It's wonderful. And my friends all say move to Cobb County. I'm like, no, Brookhaven is a wonderful, viable place. In the back of where I live and the Montrells and the Dillons, we're all neighbors. There is what I call a creek, but it's actually runoff from the street that goes right through the backyard of all of our houses and all of our backyards. And when it rains, even without floods, these creeks go from dry beds to rivers. And when people look at the houses for sale, it's the first question, well, does your property flood? Okay, and sometimes it does, as it exists now. If you rezone and permit the rezoning from 4 to 10 or 4 to 8, the retention ponds that exist now are insufficient, but they were approved. They look good on paper.
Time is up.
Time's up, yeah.
So I'd respectfully ask that we be contacted, that we have this dialogue, and that at this point you deny.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Debbie Stair, 3764 Mill Creek.
Thank you.
Kurt Noel, 3937 Ashford Trail.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Virginia Noel does not wish to speak, 3937 Ashford Trail, but in opposition. And then the final card in opposition, Karen Powell, does not wish to speak but would like her comments read into the record. We are downhill from this development and the runoff will increase to our property.
Okay. That it?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so I think I think the applicant had some reserve time. How much time?
14 minutes. and
Yeah,
45
that's right.
Look at all I promise. The camera on? Zoom?
Oh, sorry.
Ooh. Very cool.
We have this, don't we?
Linda's right, by the way.
We're only
This is-
smiling at the camera,
This
not
is
at what's going
vibrating.
on, believe me. That's what.
Really is.
Linda, let me see. I mean, it must be the air conditioning unit that. It's the trap door you should worry about.
Yes, just don't hit the button. I think that this map perhaps helps put everything into perspective because it illustrates where these folks who are objecting to the project actually live. The speakers from Harts Mill live in this community right here. They adjoin the single-family homes that are to remain in this subdivision, as well as one on Harts Mill itself, which remains, as well as one on Chambly Dunwoody, which remains. They do not back up against this property. Ironically, if I'm not mistaken, I zoned their subdivision about 20 years ago, and everybody else in here complained that they didn't want them there because of the runoff and the other issues. This is hardly a spot zoning. Please keep in mind what the staff has informed you about how this is supposed to all be RA5. That's what it was in DeKalb County. This is all R60. That's what it was in DeKalb County. It was simply a glitch in transcription that it didn't show up in your map. And all we're trying to do is to create a phase 2 to this property in order to develop it. I am not at all unmindful of design issues and detention issues and that kind of thing. And although I am not filing this 8-lot subdivision plat with you, because if I do, I'll have to defer the hearing, this is what it would look like. And it fixes the 35-foot lot widths. It fixes the weird spokes off of the cul-de-sac. And it was in response to questions like that that my client actually revised this plan. Detention's a tough issue. Regrettably, the way the rezoning process works, and I'm sure you all know this, is that you go and you get your zoning, and then you do your engineering. You don't do your engineering first. Your engineering gets reviewed by the city of Brookhaven. It is at that point where you do your hydrological studies, you do your tree save studies, you do all of the engineering that enables you to design. But we do know from a preliminary standpoint, at least, that both of these phases will have detention. It is in this corner here, which I believe will address the issue of it flowing this way into this creek. And then there will be one in the phase
Dan.
one in the front of the development.
Isn't what sits before us.
Right, I understand.
Okay.
What?
No, that's all right. Let's keep going. It's-
So,
What we're here to talk about.
No, but it's
but I
it's their
offered to
time.
drop
Yeah.
2 lots, and
Yeah.
I wanted you to
Yeah,
see what
it's-
it would look like
Yeah,
if
it's-
we
it's their time,
dropped.
though. I'm sorry, keep going, I'm sorry.
Okay. So we are contemplating that, and I will also say this. Of all the laws regulating development over the past 10 years, I think probably sedimentation and erosion control and water runoff are the ones that have been most policed and have been most improved. There are requirements now that are on the books that have never been on the books before, not the least of which is that you have to detain more than what is coming off your property now. You have to actually make an improvement of it. You have to have a 10% reduction, if you will. You do a study of what runs off now. Whatever you design in terms of detention for the site has to make sure that there is 10% less than what is there now. Additionally, you have to clean it now because of NPDES permitting rules and water quality standards. So detention has improved enormously, and I think that the staff in Brookhaven has done a fine job of enforcing it with any other project that I've been involved with ever since the city became a city. So I understand those issues. We certainly don't intend to flood anyone. If we do flood anyone, we are liable, and it's not like we're going to be disappearing. We're developing in this area forever. As to the name, I don't know what games are being played here. We are a Delaware corporation that is registered to do business in the state of Georgia. If Mr. Posey secured the same name as my client 2 weeks ago or yesterday or whatever day it was when we filed this application 3 months ago, I don't know. I guess maybe the fact that you're registered in the state doesn't mean that somebody else can't then take your name. I'm not a corporate lawyer, so I don't know the answer to that, but I assure you that we're a corporate entity. Mr. Sean Haynes is with me this evening. He is one of the principals of that group. He is the one who has gone out and knocked on the doors and talked to people, and I don't know why people got missed unless it's because it just really wasn't suspected that there would be a problem with that community when it was completely separate. If you want us to go talk to him, we'll be happy to, and that's certainly something we would consider as well. Sean, do you want to say anything? Stand up.
My attorney has advised, we have met with the homeowners. I am also willing to meet with the Harts Mill homeowners as well. This plan has changed probably 3 times since we have acquired the properties on phase 1 in order to make the homeowners on Wendell Court happy, pleased. You know, we had original plan that I believe it was 13 lots. The homeowner disagreed. The plan that you have in front of you, the homeowner said that there was too much concrete, so we agreed to reduce this site plan down to 8 homes, which significantly cuts the profit margin, but we're only trying to make the homeowners happy. We plan on being in the community for a very long time, and our reputation and our product is most important to us. Our attorney said that the homes that we're building are going to be 3,000 square feet. Actually, the homes that are going to be built are 4,200 square feet and larger. We have one homeowner that currently lives on the street is also interested in purchasing in what we're calling phase 2 as well.
All right, so we've been through the applicants had their time, those in support, and those in opposition, so we will close this public meeting. And I will open it up for the commissioners to ask any questions of anyone.
I've got a question.
Okay.
This,
To who? Or to whom?
I guess for the staff.
Who to whom?
I'm somewhat confused here. Obviously, we looked at a 10 plat subdivision briefly. At that time, during our work session, we were notified that it had been reduced to 8. At that time, during our work session, we ultimately determined that it was going to be deferred and spent very little time reviewing it. At least myself personally. Learned just as we arrived to the meeting tonight that request to change from 10 to 8 was withdrawn so that we could hear the 10-lot subdivision plan. I personally don't have enough information on exactly what we're looking at here. I don't think I'm in a position to make any sort of recommendation or decision tonight based on what I've heard. Obviously, there's a lot of interest in the community to hear more about it. The developer sounds like they're interested in working on this a little bit more as well.
So do you have, I mean, is there a question here? I mean, we haven't had a motion to discuss this,
Sure.
so.
Okay.
So is there a
Fair enough.
question?
I guess the question is, we're required to make our decisions tonight based upon the 10-lot subdivision that was originally, not the 8 that was put up there a few minutes ago.
That is correct.
Okay.
The application before the planning commission is the 10-lot subdivision plat. The applicant did indicate that in response to questions from the community, that they offered to reduce it by 2 lots. So they did demonstrate to you what that would look like. But the case before you is the plan with the 10 lots, and in consideration of everything you've heard here tonight, the report from the staff, the report presented by the applicant, those that spoke in favor and those that spoke in opposition.
Question for staff is for procedure. If we have, my understanding, we can defer. Is that an option for us? Didn't we have that text amendment a couple weeks ago?
Yes, the planning commission has the authority to defer an application.
And would a deferral permit an amended site plan to be submitted and advertised and discussed?
A deferral would allow for the submission of a site plan. Yes.
And, okay, thank you.
I think that was my question. I think we've already got an indication that's something that the applicants is interested in. I don't have any more questions.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're clear. I think I am, and I think everybody else, but I don't think it'll help. The city council voted last month to allow the planning commission to defer a single 30-day cycle back to us, which is a change in the ordinance, was a change in the, well, was it an ordinance?
It was an amendment to the ordinance to give the planning commission the authority to grant a deferral. Prior to that, the planning commission could only recommend deferral. But
And-
under the new regulations, the planning commission has the authority to grant a deferral for 30 days.
So I'm saying this sometimes for a little bit for the benefit of make sure we're all clear on it, since this is the first time we've done it. So if there is a motion to defer in the planning commission, then it will not go to the city council on the 10th,
That is correct.
and would come back to this planning commission as the next action point. Hopefully, lots of action between the developer and the community, but the next one would be to us on July the 2nd?
July the 9th,
July the 9th.
and then it would go to council July 22nd.
And the applicant can submit an amended plan. That's really what. Right. And the applicant is permitted to submit an amended plan. When we defer and they come back, they can come back with an amended plan.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So as we make sure we've understood our own ordinance, which I think we all did. Okay, I'm sorry, another question?
I have another question.
All right.
For staff. Ms. Cannon, if we move in the direction as we've indicated towards a deferral, would those who have shown up tonight, who are here in opposition and here for the development, could their comments be again read into the record so as to avoid their having to appear here again?
Are you asking the staff?
The staff, that's
Yeah.
right.
Could they-
We didn't hear
We'd have to have a
any.
public
Take
hearing.
judicial
We'd have to have a
notice
public hearing,
effectively of what was said tonight.
If you close the public hearing, then there would not be a requirement for you to open, to have public comment again, but you do have the ability to reopen for public comment.
If they come with an amended plan, then.
Okay. No, any other? I realize we're just working through this with, okay.
Well, I think that there's more the idea of is, would we still be able to draw upon the comments the next time we hear this without someone, a live speaker, given that they've spoken once in opposition as far as the record that we're deciding on?
I'll state that based upon the speaker cards that we have, that will be placed into the record along with the packet that's will be presented before you. In addition to that, we'll have the minutes available to the next meeting, which will also highlight all the comments that were made at tonight's meeting.
Thank you.
So just to be clear, we want to make sure we state we are going to close, we've closed the public
That's
hearing
correct.
this evening. So we could reopen a new one at the next,
You could open another public
Another
comment,
public
but you've
comment
actually officially closed the public hearing.
right, okay. Could we open another public comment section? Okay. So do I have, any other questions for anyone? The applicant, I guess I have I'll have one question for the applicant, and that is, and it really has to do with the discussion around the deferral. Are you don't need to answer, obviously. Would this give the community and you all some more time to?
Oh, absolutely, and I'll get the names from Susan, and I'll send everybody a postcard or a letter or something and suggest some dates and see what works best for everybody, and we'll follow up between now and when we come back to you. That'll absolutely happen.
And on the next question, thank you. And next for Mr. Posey, I'd ask the same question to you. Again, you don't have to answer. Would this give you an opportunity to chat to speak more with the developer? Okay. Okay. And then the last question for staff before I call for motion. And the other change in the ordinance that we wrote was a community involvement. So if we were, no, okay.
The filing of this case occurred in
predates
a
that.
cycle that occurred prior to the adoption of that requirement.
Okay. All right, and with that, I will entertain a motion.
I'd like to propose that we defer RZ 14-08 back to us, to the next Planning Commission.
Okay, so we have a motion to defer this to our July 9th meeting. Do I have a second on that?
I'll second.
Well, one of you second.
I'll second.
Okay, we've got a second down here. Okay, all in favor of deferring RZ 14-08, did I get that right? Yeah, 08, to our July 9th Planning Commission meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, everyone. I think this is I encourage everybody to get together and talk. Okay, and next item on the agenda that's it. Is that it?
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn.
So we have just everybody give one more second. We have a motion on the floor to adjourn. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Here.
No? All right.
What
All
is
in
your
favor of
address?
adjourning?
Mill Creek.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Nay. Okay, thank you all.